as we are pressed for time, I will not go through greeting and recognizing everybody, except maybe the President of the Republic, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, and Mrs. Mbeki and Mrs. Mhlante, and Mama Grasa Machel, and our veterans, Auntie Sophie, Andrew Mlangeni, and Mozimula, and everybody else, I recognize you. I will start off by reading a poem which I hope that you will bear in mind as I repeat what has already been said by others. It is written by our poet laureate, William K. Kiurapetsi Kosisile. It is, the title of the poem is For T.W. How can we say we shall not participate in death? How can we say this ritual is not our own? But the mouths of fools are here like accidents on any road. They will say you have left us if they offer us the staleness of their tears. Let them. We are not dry like wood. We shall not break like bone if you live in us. If you live in us, we shall not ask for pity. They will say you were survived by so-and-so in ritual delirium, talking about you as if you are no more than sentiment. Talking about you as if you were no more than body. Talking as if we are separate like mountains. But as long as we live, we shall do what you did. We shall build children and homes. Our bodies too shall be claimed by the earth we walk every day. And those with sense shall remind us that there is no death, in life only in death. That the old know not to ask for pity. That we shall all participate in this ritual in spite of the salty taste of all the pitiful tears as long as we live. Like Minister Dlamini Zuma, I also want to apologize to Billy here that my speech is not typed and very formally arranged, but we had a blackout last night and this morning, so I had to struggle in the dark. So pardon me for the errors that I will make. We know that Billy Modise was 87 years old when he died on the 20th of June, 2018. That he had lived a long, active and productive life as an academic, a diplomat par excellence, a disciplined worker who rose to the position of chief of protocol for our government and our country, a lover of all the people of South Africa and those who promoted and served the cause of our liberation. His greatest challenge was always to serve in whatever capacity he was directed to. We also know that he was a loving husband, dutiful and responsible to his last breath. The tragedy of this great man and his strong, beautiful life was the loss of his son Tsepo in Lusaka at the age of 12. Thus it was that he loved his daughter Thandiwe with a fierce devotion that can never be extinguished nor contradicted. She, Thandiwe, was the one who refused to leave his deathbed. She held his hand till his last breath, insisting that despite the sleepless nights and daily visits and the many false alarms, she would remain by his side, holding his hand to the end. It is also a fact that the birth of Billy Modise Diale, his grandson, was the highlight of his life, his comfort, and his consolation. Kosi was the apogee of his ability to love. Thandiwe, your father's greatest wish was that you would nurture and raise Kosi to become a great man like he was. And we will be watching you. It is because this gentleman and his strong wife had in 1998 lost his elder daughter Buntle, who herself was a force of beauty and energy combined. An economist who studied in Lesotho and returned as though she spoke perfect Sotho by just saying, ho hang, she said, starting every sentence. She was an ever delightful woman child, determined and clear-headed, loving life, but always mindful of her filial responsibilities. Billy and Yolisa were not cowed by the devastation wreaked by the cruel loss of their son and their daughter. They always lived in the present, dispensing affection and service to those around them, whether it was in Lusaka, Sweden, or South Africa. In no small measure, that sense of duty was always carried out. And this extended to their family, the Modises in Bloemfontein, and in the Eastern Cape to the Borques, Matthews, the Makubelas, and all their extended family in Sweden, where they had studied and where they had built their marriage and their family. In this past week, young and old have extolled Billy's steadfastness, his consistency, his reliability, kindness, integrity, and selflessness. Perhaps his only vanity was his sartorial elegance, to which he paid great attention. But that faded in the reality of his seriousness and dedication to his movement, the African National Congress. Through his work erecting the mammoth anti-apartheid movement in Sweden, he expressed the seriousness to uphold the best values in human life, at home and abroad. He was forced to be in exile, but he was never an exile. He was always a South African. And essentially, He remained a Motswana boy from Bloemfontein, determined to make a contribution to building a non-sexist, democratic, non-racial, united South Africa. By all accounts, from Masekela, from people who worked with him in Matla Trust, the education project, the voter education project that he headed before our first democratic election. To those who played golf with him, debated with him, his nephews and his nieces, his family and friends, he was a great, great human being. He never sought to enrich himself, nor to promote his self-interest. To the last, he was an active member of the veterans and stalwarts of the ANC who took the step to put together a document called For the Sake of Our Future, of which he was signatory. I can't hold that. Of which he was signatory. A document which decried the condition that South Africa was in because we in the ANC had stepped away from the values that we had promised to uphold. In all the memories of Billy's life's achievements, none omitted the centrality of his life companion, his wife, Yolisa Bokwe Modise. Indeed, it is not possible to speak of Billy without speaking of Yolisa, or vice versa. They were one. Yolisa, my own friend for over 50 years, has some quaint phrases, no doubt typical of the Eastern Cape, ekoloni. She never telephones or calls, but she rings. And is sorely tried by modern technology, by the modern technology of the cell phone. And it is most likely that when you call her, in answering the phone, she will switch it off. So Billy duly became her personal assistant, as we would all call him when we wanted to reach Yolisa. Except that we would make certain that this was not done during the evening news hour or when there were important sports events, when he would render short shrift to any attempted conversation with a short, sharp, let's talk later, Babsi. But always polite, he would always ring back later to start his own serious discussion. When Yolisa finally rang, we would seamlessly continue where Billy and I had left off. Billy is another brother that I have lost, that we have all lost. I never thought he would never be there for me to tease a smile out of. And I cannot even begin to understand what his departure means to Yolisa, to Tandiwe, to his sister Dora, to Khosi, and indeed to all of us. Yolisa, your loss is unutterable, but we know your strength and we depend on you. And as the great Bengali poet Rabindranath Tagore said, if you cry because the sun is gone out of your life, your tears will prevent you from seeing the stars. Yolisa, you are the quintessential woman, wife, mother, and you understand women's work. To Billy, you were everything. And in Maya Angelou's words, he would now say to you, sun, rain, curving sky, mountain, oceans, leaf and stone, starshine, moonglow, you're all that I can call my own. In closing, I would just like to say that some of the conversations that Billy and I had were always about Africa and the future. We were concerned about our youth because we had been raised and inspired by the independence movement in Africa. We knew about Nkrumah Nyerere and all the other great African leaders. We followed their stories. We read the works of African writers like Achebe, Fanon, Ngugi, Laguma, and many others, Amy Césaire. We knew about negritude. And our return to South Africa was a validation of all that we had learned about our continent, about the diaspora. And we worried about the youth of today, not because they are not talented, not because they are not excellent, but because we could not figure out who are their heroes. We were also affected by what happened beyond our own borders, and this was something we grew up with. And we wondered about our youth. Do they care about what's happening in Syria, or Yemen, or South Sudan, or anywhere else in the world where there is human suffering? These conversations I will miss deeply. Billy was a highly decorated man, as has been said, and recently we were honored to be part of the guests to witness his receipt of the Polar Star from the King of Sweden, the King Gustav of Sweden. Billy was very meticulous, but towards the end of his life, he tended to talk too much. And during that time, when he got the Polar Star, the ambassador of Sweden was very reluctant to do it, but she had to stop him and say, "It's enough now, Billy," because he told the long story of how he left South Africa via Botswana and England in detail. And we all wondered, God, this is now late 50s. When are we going to get to the 21st century? But the ambassador was very firm, and finally we were able to get him off the stage. In conclusion, there's much, much more I would say about my brother, my friend, and a great South African patriot. And I have decided that I will read the last two stanzas of the poem by a great African-American poet, Margaret Walker, which is entitled "For My People." It's a long poem. I'm not going to read it all. I'll read the last two stanzas, but I hope that if you can Google it, you should, because it will evoke images of our own experience. She ends her poem by saying, "For my people, standing, staring, trying to fashion a better way from confusion, from hypocrisy and misunderstanding, trying to fashion a world that will hold all the people, all the faces, all the Adams and Eves and their countless generations. Let a new earth rise. Let another world be born. Let a bloody peace be written in the sky. Let a second generation full of courage issue forth. Let a people loving freedom come to growth. Let a beauty full of healing and strength, of final clenching be the pulsing in our spirits and our blood. Let the dirges disappear. Let a race of men, and I'm adding, and women, now take control. Billy, we will miss you, but you've left us a great legacy. Yoli, Kandi, Khosi, be comforted. We are with you. Thank you.